Welcome to Biztechasia's hottest startup show. Now, this show is part of our media partnership with the Singapore Business Show 2022. Now, our guest today is Yogesh Sangle. He's the global head of Instarem, which is part of the NIUM Group. Now, NIUM Group is the first global payments platform to enable businesses to send, spend, and receive money from around the world, in addition to empowering them to develop their own products. Now, to tell us more, welcome to the show, Yogesh. Could you start by giving us an overview of Instarem and your parent company, NIUM Group?
Absolutely, and it's always my pleasure to talk about Instarem. We are a one of the leading digital cross-border payments platforms. We enable individuals, businesses to send and collect international money transfers conveniently and securely. But at the same time, we also have a unique card proposition in Singapore called the Amaze card, which is very interesting, which kind of allows you to really save money when you travel overseas as a consumer. We have our network covers more than 100 markets. Most of our markets, almost 65 markets, are real time. We are very much a licensed service provider. We have licenses across 40 countries, and we also, that includes Europe, which has multiple countries that are considered as a separate geography. But we also have licenses in Singapore, Japan, Indonesia, Hong Kong, Malaysia, India, US, UK, separately from EU and Canada, and also Australia. So that's something that's been our strength. And I think from our perspective, the one thing that we look at is trying to make things simple for people. That's something that we believe in. We are a part of the NIUM Group, and we are the consumer and SME payments arm of the NIUM Group, which other parts of the business at NIUM, they focus on B2B payments, whereas we focus on consumer and SME direct to them, right? So you can come onto an Instarem website, sign up, and send money directly, right? Without having to connect with us through APIs or any other ways, right? NIUM itself is a global payments company. We became the Southeast Asia's first B2B unicorn in 2021. And we've been growing from strength to strength with almost 1,000 employees now located in almost all parts of the world. So it's been a great journey for us over the last few years.
Now, in terms of NIUM's overall business, and you just very clearly differentiated the B2B and the B2C business, which Instarem is in. How much does the Instarem business account for NIUM's overall business?
So it's fascinating, right? The story of NIUM starts with Instarem. So basically, NIUM started as Instarem. It was one of our founders and our CEO, Prajit, who was trying to solve a unique problem of kind of making a payment to a friend or to a vendor in Thailand, and they wouldn't accept anything. So he got one of his friends to pay for him, and he paid him back in India. So he was wondering whether he can solve this, and that's kind of where the journey began. So it began with individual payments, and our SMEs actually self-discovered us, and they saw that we built a platform which was so good that even if it was a consumer platform, our small and medium enterprises could use it. We had our competitors approaching us saying, "Hey, how do you manage to get money delivered so fast across borders? How do you move money so fast across borders?" And that became the genesis of our B2B business, which now is a larger part of NIUM, but Instarem's a very, very significant part. We don't disclose individual numbers, but it is a very, very significant part of the overall business, especially when it comes to profitability.
So then Instarem itself, what's your secret sauce? What makes you different from other digital remittance services out there? And there's plenty of them.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think there are as many services and as many variety of services available in the market as you would want, right? I think for us, the big differentiator is we try and keep things very, very simple, right? If you look at what a customer wants, right? And our focus has always been on the customer. Customer is center of everything that we do, right? If we really look at what the customer wants, is nobody wakes up in the morning saying, I'm going to wake up and send money somewhere, right? That's not a use case. People want to get something done, right? They want to send their parents need something, they want to kind of send money for that. They want to send a red packet to someone back home, or they want to make an insurance payment, or they want to buy land in some country, they want to buy a property somewhere else. There's a use case, right? And the use case is the most important thing, right? And whenever you're doing this, right, the one thing that you want is you want a payment company which keeps it simple and does not say that I exist. We want to make it so simple that the customer doesn't realize that we exist, right? We want to disappear. That's our ultimate aim, right? We want the customer to have their aspirations met, their needs solved, and we are just a means to an end, right? So that's what our focus and goal is. So whenever we do anything, so for example, if you're doing a product design, the question that I would ask, or the discussion that we would have in the room with my product leads, would be, how do we eliminate one more step for the customer to make things easy for that? And it's not simple, right? Because we are a regulated entity, and we are working to create this entire environment, despite there being a lot of compliance, right? So just from that perspective, it is very, very interesting that you have to balance compliance, regulation, AML with simplicity. And I think that's our secret sauce. We manage this very well. We get simplicity along with keeping things simple, along with balancing, risk and rewards for the customer. So that's kind of where we are, and that's where, therefore, customers love us, right? We have fantastic NPS scores. Our last survey said 65%. I have worked for consumer brands all my life. There's never been a brand that I've worked for, despite working for large brands like Citi, Barclays, PayPal. None of them were at that level. So we have something that our customers love.
Okay, I want to ask you then a little bit, because you touched on these several key points, essentially evolving around regulations and compliance and regulations, especially in this part of the world. Now, let's talk a little bit about the regulations around fintech like yourselves in the region. How is the regulatory landscape evolving, and what do you think is hampering innovations, perhaps in some countries in the region?
So I feel that if you look at the regulatory landscape in general, regulators in each country, they have their objective is, or they're working on different objectives, right? Most of them, probably their final aim is that they want to ensure consumer protection. They want to ensure that their system is not gamed, their currency is stable, and stuff like that, right? They have objectives which are very clearly defined. But the path that they take to it is very, very different. In some cases, like the Singapore regulator, MAS especially, is very, very, I would say, collaborative. They would have conversations around how to move forward. And it's not that they're trying to, close up everything down or create new regulation. It's more about whether they're trying to do it in a way that they can balance the risk with the reward, right? So something like that. And then there are some regulators who are more inward focused. They want to protect their currency or their population and stuff like that, or populace. Uh, there are more restrictive practices, right? But fintechs like us, we are used to being who've kind of chosen to be regulated. We used to getting uh, the best out of every regulator, whichever way they kind of lay it out there, right? Because it's not going to be the same in every country. Every country has different needs, but we do tend to go back and have conversations with regulators to explain to them why something is important versus not, right? So we've had successes. We've managed to convince regulators that, who were asking for local data, to say that cloud instances are equivalent to kind of having some amount of data with you and stuff like that. So things like that, right? Just an example. And we've had very positive reception. We also had some regulators who told us that they will not do it, which is also fine. But we find our way around that then.
Now, Yogesh, through your global lens, because you are the global head of Instarem, which geographical areas seem to be pushing the envelope on the payments business a lot more than others?
I mean, Asia is far ahead on payments. Like US, I worked in a company before this which had a very healthy business which used to do 100 million plus revenue just by cashing checks, right? So I mean, I don't know. I'm not even sure that like checks are getting redundant. Like Korea got rid of checks in probably early 2000s, right? So I'm just saying that the the pace of growth of payments in Asia is super exciting. Europe's a fast follower. They're making changes. The open banking framework in Europe is revolutionary. They're basically giving customers so much choice and so much freedom and so much power, which is very, very essential as we are moving forward. So I think that's where we are. I think America is, or the Americas is still lagging behind, but things like with some really exciting stuff happening in Latin America, which could kind of take it to a next level. US still has to do a catch up, right? I feel that, uh, I mean, when I see that a success of a Zelle or success of the Cash App and stuff like that, these things have existed in Asia, APAC for a while now. Okay, so I just feel that that we're leading the charge from this part of the world, and Europe's a fast follower.
Now, I want to ask you about Africa, because Africa, from a mobile payment standpoint, was actually an early adopter because they had to do some leapfrogging in terms of technology. How is the African payment landscape? What does it look like right now?
So we don't have a significant business in Africa, okay. But having said that, we've evaluated various partners. We've spoken to various future acquisition targets and stuff like that some point of time. But just what we see is that there's dichotomy, right? While there is mobile payments and leapfrogging, there are certain places where the banks are very strong. So I think there is a bit of dichotomy. I think there will be, the next few decades we'll see explosive growth in that part of the world. Some of the partners we are talking to are doing stupendous job, but there's still some fundamental issues to be solved around currency, liquidity, movement of money, licensing. Like some of the countries in Africa ask you to have a license to even have a receive presence. So send money to that country as a provider, I need to kind of have certain kinds of approvals and stuff like that. So it's a journey. Okay, so and there's struggles, right? The struggles are real. Like for example, Nigeria for a long time has had a parallel market for the currency, which they have tried very hard to stymie. But so that obviously makes the regulator a little more skeptical about any innovation that's coming in, because that kind of takes away control, right?
Yes.
So these are things that are real. They impact people's livelihoods, and they're non-trivial. So I believe that that there will be improvements that'll come in, but it'll take some time.
So then, Yogesh, looking ahead, what are some key payment trends that you see globally going into 2023 and beyond?
So I think one of the things that we see, which we feel is going to be pretty exciting for NIUM as a whole, and for Instarem also, is basically, I think travel is going to be back, and it's coming back. Like, I don't know whether you've traveled recently. I mean, tickets are just like, it reminds me of the 90s.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a privilege.
Expensive.
It's a privilege to travel now. But I believe that, slots are getting filled up. I think more planes are coming back and stuff like that. Staff is being hired. So I think there is going to be a lot of travel, both business travel as well as personal travel. Maybe more personal as business, depends, right? I mean, certain parts of the world, it may be the other way around. But with that happening, I think that sector had some really good innovations, which got stalled during COVID. So I think there will be new innovations coming out there. I think Forex is a very, very critical part of travel, and that still is a very, very high margin, almost usurious margins in some cases. So I think that will get disrupted. We will disrupt a lot of it. We are very confident about that. Apart from that, I think it's about the mainstreaming of crypto. I think that's something that's happening. I think NIUM is already in the process of working with several players with their crypto as a service solution. But we definitely feel that there will be mainstreaming of it. There would be use cases that would come, which would be in real terms useful, because we always people who've been in fintech for a long time, we always thought that crypto. We were skeptical, and we always thought that crypto is some a solution in search of a problem, right? But right now we're seeing that there's some mainstreaming, some use cases that could become really good. And I genuinely fundamentally believe that the underlying technology can be used for much more than just payments, right? So that's something that I feel is despite the Bitcoin price, so at least the gamblers go away and somebody really sees use of it, and especially because the kind of inflation that we're seeing in various parts of the world, right? So I feel that there's some mainstreaming that may happen there. Apart from that, I think just improvement of payment infrastructure across the world. That's something that I feel, even now, like again, going back to my previous employer, they had a large business where people used to just send money from one Walmart to another across the US, sometimes in the same city, right? Because there was no way of kind of transferring money to each other. Banking systems in even advanced markets like US are broken, right? We have also several countries have built barriers around how money moves across markets, right? So I think there is some disruption that'll accelerate over the next few years, because we are confident that we are disrupting quite a bit of it on the infrastructure side with NIUM, and Instarem with being a great use case of whatever NIUM builds, right? So from that perspective.
So Yogesh, proof is in the pudding when people value your business. Now, NIUM Group is valued at over $1 billion. So you're a unicorn, your run rate is topping 100 million. But I want to zoom in on Instarem. What's next for Instarem in the coming year?
Yeah, so I think it's pretty interesting and exciting, right? As a part of overall business which is growing, we feel that we are the slightly older or slightly mature business. So for us, the big thing was to break even internally. Okay, so that's something that we're very close. We almost there or whatever. Okay, but having said that, growing profitably and sustainably, that's what we are looking at, right? And that's because, you know, any consumer business that you run, it is very, very, very marketing heavy. It is, if you look at any large consumer fintech or a consumer business, even if you look at Shopee or anybody else, they spend tons of dollars on marketing. While I am a marketer at heart, I do believe that marketing should earn itself, right? So I think as a business leader, what I'm trying to do is to build a self-sustainable business, which is pretty large in size, right? It has scale. So that's what we are working through. I think for us, the big focus has been our SME business. So we build products which are really outstanding for our small and medium businesses. So now we have the ability to kind of not only send but receive money in various currencies, move across more than 100 markets, get the best possible rate, get really personalized service, really feel good about how they're being treated vis-a-vis how they get treated with banks, right? You can see the difference in how we deal or interact with our customers, and take that to the next height in that sense, right? So the other piece that's exciting for us is that we launched a consumer card product in Singapore, which is doing pretty well. It is, I mean, it is perhaps the best travel card in this part of the world, and we are kind of building that proposition across markets.
I want to interrupt you here because that sounds really interesting. Tell us about your travel card, especially in these times. That sounds like a right product for the right time.
Absolutely. Well, it's the Instarem Amaze card. It's basically a card where you can link several credit or debit cards. It's a debit card that you have. You can link several debit or credit cards onto that single card. It gives you freedom to spend out of any of those cards depending upon. So you don't have to carry 5 plastics with you. You could have one plastic which could have all of those 5 cards linked to it. In some cases, you get the underlying rewards of the other cards. When you spend overseas, you get fantastic rates and you get a cashback, right? So from our perspective, we are kind of making the product in such a way that it's a custom, like if you're going overseas for any reason, you don't need to carry any other plastic, right? You have the ability to load the wallet of the card and keep the money and kind of use it overseas if you don't have a credit or debit card. But otherwise, you can use your underlying credit and debit card. You don't need to worry about limits and stuff like that. For example, in Singapore, if you have a wallet, you have limits. You have limits of $5,000 that you can spend and stuff like that at any point of time. Whereas with this card, you don't need those limits.
Yogesh, thank you very much for taking your time to be on the show. I'm Brian Fernandez, and we've been speaking to Yogesh Sangle, the global head of Instarem, on Biztechasia, Asia's hottest startup show. Now, this show is part of our media partnership with the Singapore Business Show 2022. This interview will be on our website, www.biztech.asia, as well as our social media platforms. It will also be on our syndication partners, TV stations, radio stations, and websites. Thanks for tuning in.